I am so delighted to be amongst a room full of the children of God. Who are committed and devoted to building healthy families, ethical societies, and creating a global culture of peace. I want to honor the excellencies that are here tonight. Dr. Moon, this is my first time meeting him, and I am in awe and inspired by your spirit and by the commitment that God has placed in your life. You are certainly one of the chosen ones. To the co-chairs, Dr. Schuler, an honor to meet you on tonight as well, and to my good friend, Senator Emanuel Jones, and to all of you wonderful delegates. Let me say that I earnestly believe if my father were living today, his heart would be warmed by the work of this great organization around the world. And in fact, I believe without a shadow of a doubt, he would be a part of your group. For all he knew was peace. He lived it, he breathed it, and he taught it. Next year, we will be celebrating, remembering the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech in our nation's capital here in America. And we're calling the world to come together on that day, because I earnestly believe that in my lifetime, it will perhaps be the only time that we will have an opportunity as a world to come together and really think about why God has placed us in this world, and to commit ourselves to not just seeing ourselves as citizens of whatever country, nation, or land we come from, but to see ourselves as global and world citizens. Because at the end of the day, no matter where you come from, the bottom line is that he has created from one blood all peoples to dwell upon the face of the earth. And we are indeed brothers and sisters. United by one Father. And ladies, we should never be intimidated by that word, because essentially, that word means originator. In 1967, my father wrote a book entitled, "Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community?" And he had a chapter in that book, in fact, it was his last chapter, entitled "The World House." And in that, he shared a few things with us that I think are just as relevant today as they were in 1967. Because he was a man of faith who had a prophetic gift on his life. In fact, when he was introduced in 1963 to this nation when he delivered what is now his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. He was introduced as the moral leader of America. And I often remind people wherever I go that I don't characterize my father as a civil rights leader. I characterize him first and foremost as a spiritual leader, as a man of God, as a moral leader who just happened to impact civil and human rights. And so everything that he did came out of his spiritual foundation. It didn't come from his political ideology. In a sense, it really didn't come from his religious beliefs. It came from his spiritual beliefs. And so that was a spiritual movement that he led that impacted civil rights. And if you read everything that he wrote, if you listen to all of his words and his speeches, you would have to be an extremely naive person to not know that that was a man sent by the Most High God. And so he had an assignment to awaken us to a higher spiritual plane. He was calling us back to some principles and values that in a real sense are the same principles and values that no matter where you live, no matter what your nationality, your ethnicity, your culture, at the end of the day, those principles and values transcend any particular generation, which means that they are everlasting. And he called us back to that foundation. He was injected into time to awaken us to who we really are. He was trying to get us to see that we really are all kings. That's why God made him a king. And that's not a masculine or feminine terminology. That's a terminology of understanding that you have been placed with responsibility to steward this earth's resources and relationships in an ethical, in a moral way. And so as he wrote in that World House, he challenged us to remain awake through a great revolution. He shared the story of a man by the name of Rip Van Winkle, who went up into a mountain, came to an inn, and took a rest. Was tired, perhaps from all of his labor. Took a nap. When he went in to take the nap, there was a picture of King George on the wall. When he finally woke up, there was a picture of President George Washington. In other words, he slept through a revolution. And we're at a critical state in our nation and world that it's important that there be a cadre of individuals who do not sleep through this great revolution, an undercurrent that is sweeping our world right now. And as Dr. Moon shared with me when we were together a little bit ago, it really is the new great awakening that is happening, and you are the chosen ones. Many have been called. Many are trying, but there are few who are chosen. And just experiencing the spirit of your leadership and what is happening in this room and the enormous work that you're doing around the world, I believe that this is a chosen endeavor. And in closing, in that particular writing that my father shared with us, he reminded us that we are at a very critical place in the world, that we must have a radical, underlined by me, revolution of values. That we must rapidly become a person-centered society rather than a thing-oriented society. That people have to be placed back at the center and the core of everything that we do. That the world problems that we're addressing will only be handled and transformed if people embrace a higher mindset. It does require a transformation of mind now and a different value system. And so we at the King Center have been, since my mother founded it some 44 years ago, as an institution, the official living memorial, to educate and train people in the principles and the methodology of nonviolence as embodied and taught by my father, Martin Luther King, Jr. And we have literally trained thousands. We don't often get credit for it. But if the truth be known, the reason that there is a recognition of Martin Luther King Jr. the way he's recognized today, it is because my mother felt the sense of call to continue his work, but more importantly, to teach people what really fueled that movement. And she didn't do it as an afterthought, because she was truly a partner in that movement. In fact, an activist in her own right, even before she met my father. And so she established that institution in the basement of our home, and I grew up with the King Center. So it's a part of me. And I'm committed to this process. There is no other way. As my father said, we are threatened by the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism all over this world. And the only way that it's going to be different is if enough courageous, strong, daring, but more importantly, individuals who are consumed with unconditional love are at the helm of leading in this new great awakening. Thank you for having me. I look forward to joining the youth on this Sunday. And I will say, for me, God bless you on tonight.